Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a real RC icon, the Tamiya Grasshopper from 1984. It wasn't just about the cool looks, was it? Its design was accessible, tough, just legendary for so many of us.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting about the Grasshopper and, its successor, the Grasshopper II, is that the story didn't just stop in the 80s. Their chassis, the very foundation, kept changing, sometimes subtly, sometimes quite significantly over the years.
Right, that's the fascinating part. So for this deep dive, what's our goal here? What are we trying to nail down about these chassis?
Okay, so our mission is basically to give you the definitive guide to those specific changes. We want to detail what changed, yeah, but also why. From these little running changes Tamiya never really announced, right up to the deliberate upgrades in the modern re-releases. If you're a collector, or restoring one, or even trying to build the best runner, knowing this stuff is, well, it's crucial.
Okay, let's unpack that. The original Grasshopper, Kit 58043, these early changes, they weren't in any brochures, right? Tamiya just kind of did them.
Exactly. They were implemented right there on the production line. Often it was about making it tougher, or sometimes, really cleverly, it was about sharing parts with other kits they were developing.
So those very first NK1 chassis, early 84, what should someone look for?
Okay, the key identifier for a true MK1 is the off-roader text, right below the Tamiya logo on the main tub. And importantly, it doesn't have a hole drilled for a front body post mount.
Ah, interesting. And the gearbox, I hear that was a bit of a weak spot.
It could be, yeah. The reinforcement ribs on the axle tubes, they were narrower, shallower on those first versions. If you dropped in a hotter motor, like many people did, you could crack those tubes. Also, the front suspension arms, held by simple metal pins, just friction fit. They tended to work themselves loose.
Okay, so simple pins, even the diff pin changed.
Yeah, the very early ones used just a plain steel pin. Later, they switched to a stepped pin, which was a bit more secure. Small things, but they add up.
So then came the next revision. This was tied into the Hornet, wasn't it?
Precisely. This shows that platform sharing thinking. They were getting the tooling ready for the Hornet, number 58045. So on the chassis tub, the off-roader text disappeared, replaced just by Tamiya.
And they added that front body post hole.
Crucially, yes, that made the tub universal for both buggies. And the gearbox. The ribs on the axle tubes got noticeably wider and taller. This was specifically to handle the extra torque from the Hornet's bigger 540 motor.
Smart engineering, planning ahead like that. And there was even one more evolution in the original run, tied to the lunchbox.
That's right. The final and sort of the strongest iteration of the original gearbox design actually came about because of the lunchbox. If you find an original B-part sprue, that's the tree the parts come on, and it says RCC lunchbox on it.
That's the one you want.
That's the strongest original gearbox. It has the widest, most robust buttresses around the axle tubes and the motor mount area, really the peak of the original design's strength.
Okay, fast forward. 2005, Tamiya brings back the Grasshopper, Kit 58346. Which version did they re-release?
They didn't go back to the 84 original. They based it on that final, most evolved vintage version. So standard, it comes with that stronger, lunchbox-style reinforced gearbox.
And did they fix any of the old problems? Like those front pins?
Oh yeah, that was a major upgrade. The flimsy friction fit pins were gone, replaced by proper screw pins, much more secure. Finally fixing that common failure point, a huge improvement for actually running the car.
But even the re-release wasn't static. There was another running change.
Believe it or not, yes. Tamiya kept refining. This was to address something people called axle slab, basically. A bit too much play or wiggle in how the gearbox mounted to the chassis tub.
Right, I think I know what you mean. So what did they do?
On the later re-release kits, and this is subtle, they actually modified the molds. They added a small locating tab on the front face of the gearbox casing and a corresponding new little slot or hole at the back of the main chassis tub for it to fit into.
And that helped.
Significantly. It really firmed up the rear end, made the suspension pivot more precise, reducing that unwanted movement, a small change, big difference in stability.
Okay, now let's shift gears. The Grasshopper II from 1988. This wasn't just a cosmetic update, was it? It was a whole new chassis design.
Absolutely. Kit 58074, chassis part number 10335092. It was a true successor, built differently from the ground up. The single biggest improvement, the game changer, really.
The rear suspension.
Exactly. It adopted the Hornet-style pivoting rear suspension. So instead of the whole rear axle being rigidly attached like the original Grasshopper, which caused that sort of hopping over bumps, the entire gearbox could now articulate, move independently.
Which means much better handling.
Oh, vastly better. Improved suspension action, much more rear grip, especially on rough ground. It made the buggy way more stable and capable. And they even had the Super G version, which came standard with a 540 motor and oil-filled CVA dampers. It showed the potential.
And the Grasshopper II also got a re-release in 2017, Kit 58643. Any changes there?
That one seems much more straightforward. The 2017 re-release is a faithful reproduction of that superior 1988 design. It has the pivoting rear end, all the good stuff. As far as we can tell, there are no running changes or mold modifications to the actual Grasshopper II re-release chassis tub itself.
So things like the Black Edition are just different parts included.
Correct. It's kit-based variation. The Black Edition, for example, uses the exact same chassis tub, but it comes with a full set of those CVA oil dampers included in the box, making it a better performer or maybe better value, depending on what you want. But the core chassis, identical.
Wow. So wrapping this up, looking back at this whole journey, it's really quite a story of iterative design, isn't it?
It really is. You see the original Grasshopper chassis get progressively tougher based on real-world use. Then the re-release fixes those known historical weaknesses and even adds a bit more stability later on. And finally, the Grasshopper II takes a significant leap with a fundamentally better suspension design.
So for you, the listener, why does digging into these chassis details matter so much?
Well, if you're a collector, knowing these differences is key to identifying, say, a true MK1 original versus a later production run. If you actually want to run these buggies, it gives you a roadmap. You know which gearbox is toughest, you know about the screw pin upgrade, you understand why the Grasshopper II handles better. It helps you build the best possible version for your needs.
It definitely makes you appreciate the engineering. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other products that we love might have these hidden stories? These continuous behind-the-scenes improvements driven by how we actually use them. Something to think about.